Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. As you guys can see, we are in the third bay today. Yes, the Corvette is still gone. It is over at the dyno shop, still getting tuned. I know rough numbers on that, but we will reveal that if you guys haven't already seen that video. So, long story short, if you guys saw the delay video, basically all my parts are delayed, projects are being delayed, everything's being delayed. You guys will have noticed that I sat in front of a set of calipers. Here's a blue caliper, it's a ZR1 caliper, and this red caliper here. Well, you guys haven't seen those red brakes. You guys might be wondering, what are those from? Well, if you guys remember during the ZR1 mock-up video that we did 6+ months ago, you guys will remember that I attempted to install a ZR1 caliper on a 2020 plus spindle, and then I tried to, I needed a rotor for it. So I happened to find a deal on Facebook Marketplace for all 4 calipers and the front rotors. The only problem is, this kit says Cadillac, so that's today's video, us changing direction. The fact that I don't know if that caliper can handle a big payload. What I mean by that is the Corvette ZR1 is only like 3,200 pounds. My truck's probably 4,500 pounds, 5,000 pounds any day of the week. And then you throw, I think the towing capacity is like 9,000 pounds, so 13,000 pounds versus a caliper designed for a car that's 3,200 pounds, you're 10,000 pounds over gross weight. And we're just doing swag numbers here, but yeah, so long story short, I don't know if that 6-piston Brembo can handle, a big truck, and then if it's towing anything. So all right guys, our stickers and our paint finally arrived for the truck calipers, and as you guys can see, we have fully sanded these down. I basically just scuffed them with a red Scotch-Brite pad. The Cadillac script, that'll be going away, replacing that with this Chevy performance decal. The top one, not the bottom one, so that'll be on that caliper. That'll be on this caliper. I have used brake cleaner to clean the caliper off, and then I followed that up with wax and grease remover because I had some basically sanding dust stuck on there. So those should be fully clean. And the paint, I did want to show you. This is again from RE Paint Supply, and we went with the Victory Red because I did some paint samples, and the Victory Red was close to this original, but it's actually a perfect match for the rear calipers, and one of them is over there back behind the caliper. Alright guys, here is the finished caliper. This one is the passenger side, I believe. Yeah, passenger side. And as you guys can see, I did find a Chevy Performance sticker to put on there. I did clear coat it. I did clear coat it like 3 or 4 times. We ended up using this Spray Max clear coat. This is a 2K clear. It's got the little trigger on the bottom to mix it. And yeah, I basically just put one light coat on here, and then I let that dry for a few minutes. Then I came back and hit it with a wetter coat, wet coat. Probably left 10-15 minutes between coats. And finally, I used up the last of that can on this caliper. I did have another project I had to paint. You guys can see that over there, but both front calipers have been fully painted, and those are ready for the install. Now, I've already installed the driver's side rear. Learned a couple lessons so far, and one lesson is, I'm glad I went with aftermarket brake lines. Picked up a set of Goodridge Performance brake lines. These are actually for the previous generation truck. So the part number is actually 414171. And like I said, that's for a previous generation. That's set up to 2017. So I figured since a lot of people do these brake swaps from like the GMT 800s to present, and the brakes can go all the way down or up with the various years, you never really hear people complaining about the brake lines. So, but one thing I discovered was when I went to install the rear brake line on using the OEM line, the casting on the red caliper versus the silver caliper is different, and the factory brake line would not fit. So if I didn't have this aftermarket banjo bolt with this smaller size, just this whole size being smaller in general, we would run into a major problem, and these brakes wouldn't have fit. So I'm glad I had the aftermarket line. And like I said, it's just a Goodridge stainless brake line, and we'll be using that for the rest of the kit. So do you need the brake lines? I don't think you do, but if you get the kit for the wrong year, you might run into bolt size problems. And guys, it's not the bolt itself, it's the piece of metal that's around the bolt. That piece is actually physically bigger, and the caliper is cast differently than this set. So for wiring, we had to disconnect only one sensor on this side. This is for the e-brake Over on the driver's side, there's 2 sensors. There's one for the wear sensor as well as the e-brake. And then at the front of the truck, I disconnected the battery. So those are the 2 or 3 things that you have to remove. And on this, there's going to be 18mm bolts on the back of the caliper. I'm going to take the top and bottom one off. I'll put the caliper over here on the bucket, just so that it's out of the way. All right, got the rear caliper off. Here's the 2 bolts. Guys, be aware there is red Loctite on there, so these were kind of a pain to get off. So the old caliper's been removed, brake line's still hooked up. Let's go get the red caliper, start the swap. We got the red caliper swapped on. Like I said, this takes, I don't know, 10 minutes. We have the top bolt tightened down. There's an 18mm bolt at the top. There's an 18mm bolt at the bottom. Torque it down 100 foot-pounds, and we should be good. All right, guys, I basically just gravity bled this. All I did was go to the front of the truck, fill up the reservoir, pump the brakes a couple times, crack the splitter open, put it into my water bottle with a tube on it. Actually, that little 3/4, that hose should be on there. But yeah, I just gravity bled it a couple times, and I didn't get any air bubbles in this clear plastic line anymore. And we're good to go. Oh, and guys, that's bleeding both rear brakes, not just one side. So it does look like we used a lot of fluid, but that's from both rears. All right, guys, so just like the back, we have the Goodridge brake line pre-installed on the front caliper. I've reassembled everything, put the brake pads back in, I put the shims in, and I put the cross brace pins, as we call it. So that's back in. And also what comes with the front calipers are 2 bolts, because I think the hardware size is different between these brake calipers and the stock ones. So they provide you extra bolts that have Loctite on them already. So, all right, guys, you can see we got the wheel off, the rotor off, the caliper off. The caliper's over there. I have not disconnected the brake line just yet. What we need to do now is actually trim this dust shield. Now, if you buy the kit from GM, it does come with a dust shield, but guys, you have to take the axle off. This is a 4-wheel drive truck. You got to take this nut off. You got to take the CV joint out the back. It's easier just to cut it. I cut it on my SS. I have no problem there, so we're just gonna do that same on here. What we're gonna use a Milwaukee cutting tool. We're basically gonna score this lip, and then since the stuff is pretty thin, we're just gonna end up cutting it with some tin snips. And then I'm gonna hit it with an angle grinder just to make sure there's no super sharp edges when we're done cutting this. So like I said, all we're doing is cutting off this slip. And the piece you come from GM, guys, it's literally the same piece. It just doesn't have the slip. So it's like take apart the truck or just cut it. So what we're gonna do is just cut it. Cut the slip off like we said. Then we'll be ready for the rotor and the caliper. Oh, and one more thing. You don't really need to trim this part because the caliper fits in here without issue. And so you'll be fully protected with the dust shield. All right, guys, I have cut the lip off. There are chunks of it all over the place. They're just like this. But yeah, so the lip's been cut off. Got the rotor installed. I tightened down the torque screw. That was a T25. Sorry, that's a T30. Tighten that down. We got the caliper installed, and you guys can still see the brake line is loose. We gotta swap that over, but these bolts torque down to around 125 foot-pounds. I could not find a GM torque spec. I looked online, I looked everywhere. So I'm gonna torque it to 125 and go from there. All right, guys, we have finished the front GM Performance brake kit install. You guys can see we have our aftermarket line from Goodridge. We got that hooked up to the spindle. We got the caliper installed, and all I did, I just used the same method as the back. I gravity bled it. So just open up the bleeder. Open up the inside bleeder first, let that get some fluid, close that off. Open up the outside bleeder, let that get some fluid, it closed it off. Went up top, refilled the reservoir. Then I started on the inside caliper again, open that up, let it bleed off into our water bottle, and then I just did the outside. And there you go, guys, with the factory 20-inch wheel. These, I don't remember if it's a 15 or 16-inch rotor. Really fill up the wheel well. If you guys look, there ain't much distance between that caliper and the wheel. So I know they clear. I've already driven the other side, so we're good to go. But yeah, we need to break in these pads, and like I said, check the dashboard to see if there's any error messages. Oh, and one more thing, guys, I did disconnect the battery right here. That was just to prevent all the electrical gremlins and all that crap to not happen, because we already had that happen in the back. Wow, nothing. So I'm aware that the tire pressure sensor system needs to be relearned. I already had a warning on the dash, but guys, there's no check engine light, there's no ABS light, the brake light, that stuff's all over here. None of that stuff turned on, and I think we're good to go. All right, guys, so that's gonna be a wrap on the Chevy Performance Brake Upgrade Kit for the Silverado. Obviously, guys, you do need a 20-inch wheel for those wheels to fit, but guys, this has been a project that has been ongoing for almost over a year. I got the ZR1 brakes like last summer. That was obviously, we did the machine work on the spindle and all that, and then we got the wheels. We got those Denali wheels, had those powder coated, had new tires put on, all that stuff. And finally, now that the Corvette is kind of wrapped up, we're actually gonna start on a project on that pretty soon. But now that the Corvette is up and running, the motor, blower, all that stuff's on there. Now that we finally got that done, we could finally start and continue these truck projects that some of them we started over a year ago. So yeah, so this is just one of those truck updates that has been a long time in the making. So, and yeah, so that's pretty much it for this project. If you guys want to see more ZR2 updates, we do have other stuff coming up. Actually, I'm about to go start another project on that. If you guys want to see those updates, hit that subscribe button, turn on your bell notifications. And if you guys want to help support the channel, check out all the links down below. I'll try to include links for everything that we bought for this project. And then also make sure you check out our website, BonecrrusherSS.com. Any merchandise and anything you pick up there goes right back into the channel, helps support us, helps continue these projects, and obviously helps the shop, the Corvette, and the truck. So thanks, guys. Have a great one.